Today I'm going to be talking about what I would do differently if I started over. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I was really reflecting today on a lot of different mistakes that I've personally made. And a lot of those things started off in the gym. So it's going to be mostly around the gym for this topic and not so much about nutrition. A little bit on nutrition, but I'm not going to dive super deep into that on this, mainly around the training. So the first thing that I would do very differently is make sure that I have a balanced training program. Now, that doesn't mean that everything needs to be trained the exact same way, but it does mean that I should be working towards making sure that I have a solid foundation with everything. Something that I did when I first started was I trained mostly just my biceps, my arms. And then the other thing was my chest. That was the second thing that I trained a lot of. I didn't do a lot of legs, full transparency. I did just about everything to avoid it. I was favoring the muscles that I preferred to work out. And while it's great to enjoy your workouts, if you are taking it seriously and you're ready to make changes, you should actually be looking at it as, okay, what's going to be the most beneficial thing for me and my goals? My goals, sure, it was to have a bigger chest, be stronger on the bench press, have bigger biceps. And at the end of the day, I was doing like curls for the girls, trying to get ripped and look good. But, if I really did take it seriously and if I could go back, I would actually do everything and be more well rounded so that I could have that more solid foundation a lot earlier on. It wasn't until later when I finally started to learn the different principles that were important about training that I realized that honestly everything works together. Training your back, believe it or not, actually helps with your bench press. And this is something I'm doing nowadays actually is I do want to increase my bench press. And this time I'm doing it with a slightly different approach or very different approach than how I did it before. One of the things that I've noticed that I get the shortfall is when I go for the heavier weights, I start shaking, right? And so that's a stability issue, which means that I need to be training the different muscles around that particular muscle so that I can have more stability. So it's really important to understand these things, and this is why it's so beneficial, no matter what your goals are, to have a balanced approach. Because by doing it with a balanced approach, you're going to make sure that even the stuff that is specific to your goals gets improvements. You can't just focus on the stuff that's more direct and that's clear and obvious. There's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that you're not even noticing. So, for example, with my chest, I'm working my back more often than my chest. Okay. Won't go too deep into my own training program. That's a topic for a different live, but that's one of the big things that I would do differently. The second thing would be to have a proper plan in place. And what I mean by that is actually having a clear understanding of what you're going to do from the time you set foot in the gym until you leave. Because one of the big things that I did when I first started working out, and partially was because I enjoyed being there, I like to spend my day, it's almost like an escape, right? It's as much mindset as it is for your body a lot of times. But one of the big things that I did was I wasted a ton of time. Whether it was spending time on my phone or going from one machine to the next thinking, okay, what does this machine do? Does it train my chest? Figuring out that, oh, it does. So I'll just do it because it's my chest day, right? And then I ended up doing, 10 different exercises for the same muscle with a half-assed approach where I wasn't actually training effectively. So having a proper plan in place does two things, three things actually. One, it allows you to actually make sure you're focusing on the things that make a difference. Two, it allows you to do it in a much more timely manner. Like I probably train my chest, or I definitely train my chest or whatever muscle a lot more effectively now in 30 to 60-minute workouts than I ever did when I was doing 3-hour workouts. And that's because I'm actually being specific about the things that I'm doing and doing each thing with a purpose. And the third benefit that it has is you can actually track what it is you're doing and focus on progressive overload, which is super important whether you're trying to build muscle or lose body fat. You need to progressively make things harder and harder so you can keep on seeing progress. The third thing that I would do differently is focusing on my form over moving super heavy weights. And the reason that that's so important, I want to give you guys a bit of a backstory. I partially tore my ACL back in high school, and this was by being super stupid about things. And basically what I did is I did get at a certain point, I had a phase where I was like, I'm going to go all out on legs because, I know so many people skip leg day, so I want to be that guy that doesn't. We don't have to get into the fact that later on I did keep on skipping leg day and it wasn't a consistent thing. But I think for about 2, 3 months, I was going super crazy on my legs and I was making sure to train them 3 times a week. And I was doing a lot of different things. At the time, I remember I was doing cross country, which was very intensive on the legs. And so, number one, I was very skinny. Number two, I was doing something that was highly endurance based, that was putting a lot of stress on the knees in the first place. And number three, I was overtraining my legs. Not necessarily with too much effective training, but mainly because I was just doing it so often. And the next thing that I was doing wrong was I was putting way too much weight on the bar when I was doing squats. I was way more focused on lifting as heavy as possible. And something that's super common that I did wrong was I would actually start to feel a pain in my knee, and then I would decide that I need to put more weight on so I don't feel the pain anymore, which, yeah, it kind of worked in a way, but it did more damage, right? Basically, what happens is just as your muscle warms up and you get more blood flow going, the pain's going to start to go away. But that doesn't mean that the underlying issue is actually gone. So that's one of the really big things. I see, sorry, I'm just seeing someone tuned in here. What's up, Praweska? Good to see you tuned in. So, yeah, that's one of the big things that I really did completely wrong was I just focused on putting more weight on it if I felt like there was pain. And by doing this, like I said, it led to that ACL partial tear. It wasn't a full tear, but it was an injury that held me back for a very long time. This happened in high school, and it wasn't until later when I became a personal trainer. I believe I was like 20 or 21 years old when I became a trainer. Can't remember right now. But when I first became a personal trainer, I hired on my own personal trainer, and it wasn't until all of that that I learned how to effectively train the muscles without triggering pain. But what would have been ideal is if from the start, I never did make that mistake of just going super crazy on it. And if I actually had a structured program in place that was meant to give me the actual stimulation for the muscles that I was looking for without being mindless about it and just piling on more weight to stop the pain, then I would have avoided not only that injury, but I would have also avoided a lot of heartache in terms of not making progress for a very, very long time. So super important that you prioritize form above strength so that over time, if you have proper form, the funny thing is too, if you show some restraint and don't break your form for more weight, then you'll actually get stronger a lot quicker because you'll actually be putting stress on the muscles rather than the joints. So keep that in mind, guys. That's probably one of the biggest things that I did wrong, that if I could go back, I wouldn't do it that way again. I see Ryan's tuned in. Good to see you tuned in, bro. So just going to read a quick comment here. Oh, I love this. I have a back problem and I'm trying to exercise and not irritate the nerves. So yeah, this is very, very, first off, I would say if you haven't gotten it checked already, consult with a doctor. But it's very important that you do build up from something that's actually comfortable for you, that actually can improve the muscle strength in the muscles around the area that you feel pain without triggering pain. And the more that you develop those muscles, the more the pain is going to go away. For me personally, I used to have back problems as well because at a certain point I pinched my sciatic nerve. If that hasn't happened to you guys, I hope it never does. That was probably the most painful, most annoying injury I ever had. And this happened actually not while working out, but I was just I was doing some landscaping and I lifted up what was it called, an auger or something? It was like this massive machine where you dig a hole in the ground. And I pulled that out in the wrong way, pinched that nerve, and I think it took probably a year before or a very long time anyways, before the pinch was actually gone. And even after that, I kept that injury. That injury stuck around for a very long time. And it wasn't, basically the way that it lingered was I would just always have that soreness there whenever I did certain things. Like driving for a very long time, I would feel that pain, certain movements, bending over. And the annoying thing was I was in construction a little bit after that. And one of the things that I did when I used to be a roofer was bending over all the time, right? And so it's funny, actually. At first, there was a lot of soreness, but because I was consistently using those muscles and I was being mindful as well, at this point, I was already a trainer and everything, so I understood these different concepts around how the muscles work and how to lift properly and safely. But once I got to that point and I was able to actually train the muscles without triggering pain, I was able to start to alleviate that pain. And now I don't get back pain the way that I used to. So yeah, if you have back problems, it's all about stimulating the muscles around that problem without actually triggering pain. And this is actually something I was going to talk about later, but it leads me to this point, which is, when I got that personal trainer, so I became a personal trainer, then I hired my first trainer while I was a trainer, funny enough. But when I hired him, I had the knee pain, and one day he noticed I was limping. And one of the things that always triggered my knee was lunges. And I was like, I came in for my session one day and he was like, I noticed you're limping. What's going on? And I told him, oh, it's my knee. It gets kind of triggered when I do lunges and all this different stuff. And he's like, okay. And I was like, oh, it's fine though. I can actually push through it. I can still do the lunges. It stops hurting after a while. And I told him this and he was like, nope. We are not doing lunges. There's different ways that we can hit those muscles, right? So that was actually a very big turning point for me and a very important thing to understand that I wish I knew much sooner, which is that there's different ways to target the muscles. And if you feel a certain pain with a specific exercise, like I did with the lunges for my knee, you don't have to do it. You can do something different that targets the same muscles. With the lunges, it hits your glutes, that's your butt muscles, your quadriceps, hamstrings. It hits most of the bigger muscle groups in your legs. Each of those can be targeted individually a lot easier or in ways that don't put stress on the joints. So keep that in mind, guys. Very important that you do train specifically to what's not going to trigger and create bigger issues. Because that's the thing that happened for me is, I dealt with this injury for 3-4 years because I kept on training in the same way regardless of the pain that came up, and I would just ignore it and add more weight on there. So it never got better. And after that, after I got that first personal trainer's advice, within probably a few months to a year, the pain was gone. I wasn't limping anymore every time I did leg day. So shout out to him if he remembers me, if he watches this. But anyways, that was really good advice that definitely changed a very large portion of my training approach. So the fourth thing is, just reading my notes here, is staying away from extremes. And this is where I'm going to touch a little bit on nutrition. This is something that I did very poorly when I first started. So I see your comment there. I'm just going to answer that in a second. I'm going to go over this point, then I'll go over it. Actually, to give you a chance to answer a quick question here for me, can you give me an example of a movement that affects your back? Or if you want, send me a message and we can go a little bit deeper into your question here. We can talk a little bit more about the different movements that you've been doing for your back, what hurts, and then we can talk through some solutions for you. But for me, for example, with my knee was, leg extensions hits my quadricep, hip thrust hits my glutes, hamstring curls hits my hamstring. So those were 3 ways that I could hit the same muscles without triggering my knee, which, I was triggering pain in the knee because I was putting pressure on the knee in the movement itself because of the nature of that type of movement. Let me know if that answers your question. Let me know if you have deeper questions than that. We could chat a bit more back and forth in the messages. But so my next point here was staying away from the extremes. So one of the big things that I did extremely wrong was I got, I went all in on trying to gain weight. Like I said earlier, I was extremely skinny when I first started working out. Unfortunately, I took a very extreme approach to trying to put on muscle. And so I ate a ton of food, all the time as much as I could. I didn't track anything. I didn't pay attention to what kind of food it was. I just thought I need to eat more so I can gain weight. But at the end of the day, the goal that I had was to gain muscle, not necessarily weight. One misconception I had was that you could turn body fat into muscle. They're two separate things, guys. If you're wondering about this, they're two separate things, and that's not the way that it works. So basically, I tried to put on as much body fat as possible, thinking that I could then change it. And I thought that I could actually, put this on in a short period of time and put on a whole bunch of muscle. So I went from, I believe I was like 135 when first getting out of high school. I'm like 6 feet, almost 6'1", and 135 pounds coming out of high school, 18 years old. That is really skinny. And so I did this dirty bulk where I would just eat McDouble after McDouble. Literally, I'd have some days where I ate like 6 McDoubles and a poutine. If you're not from Canada, you might not know what a poutine is. It's French fries, gravy, and cheese. And then I would have, what else would I have? Filet o fish meal. That was something. I would literally have all these foods in one sitting, like literally 6 McDoubles. And so I gained weight. I definitely gained weight, but it was all body fat. And I actually got to the point where I was like 185, 190-ish. So I got fat for a while, right? And that definitely ruined my confidence for one, but second, I didn't grow as much muscle as I wanted to. So then I went on the other extreme end, which was losing all the body fat as quickly as I could. And I did the exact opposite where instead of eating everything I could, I ate basically nothing. So all I would do is I'd have, like 2 to 3 protein bars a day with me. And every time I started to feel hungry, I would take a little bite out of my protein bar. I wouldn't even eat the whole thing. I'd take a little bite and I would savor that, and I would make sure I'd wait a little while so that my body kind of got a signal that it did get some kind of like food. And that worked for managing my hunger. And I was able to deal with being in starvation mode, but I lost all that body fat super quickly, just about as quickly as I gained it. So I probably initially gained in like 6 months, I put on like 40 to 50 pounds. And then in another 3 to 4 months, I lost all that body fat, but I also lost any muscle that I might have put on. I ended up, yes, a little bit heavier, but it really wasn't worth it. And to be honest, I don't even think that that little bit heavier that I ended up on was really muscle. I ended up back at like 140 to 145. So it absolutely was not worth it. Again, that extra few pounds, probably not muscle, because there is a limit on muscle you can grow. And honestly, I wasn't paying attention to protein or anything like that. But basically, I'd just gone through these processes. I'd slowed down eventually, but with these extremes. And like I said, I became a personal trainer. I started to learn and to know better than to do this. But this is one of the big things that I would do differently if I could go back, because that wasted a lot of my time. It wasted, I was going through that cycle multiple times. And yes, I did it initially in like under a year with the full dirty bulk and then losing it. But, I did that multiple times and it wasted years of my training. So it was very frustrating to not see progress at all the way that I wanted to. Eventually I did that again. Then I think it was during a bulk, trying to remember right now, it was during a bulk that I was basically becoming a personal trainer. Then I learned how to lose it properly, which was ideal. And from that point, I finally learned the difference, which is taking it slow and steady. And something that I actually learned in construction that one of my foremen had told me at a certain point was slow means smooth and smooth means fast. And that's so true in so many different areas, not just in construction, but that stuck with me as a good quote to say, even in training and in nutrition and everything and in your goals. Because when you take it slow, you do it properly, and then you actually see results at the speed that is supposed to happen. Scientifically, there is a maximum speed that you can actually put on muscle or lose body fat in a healthy way without destroying your metabolism. So taking it slow means that you're going to do things smoothly in the way that's proper, and then you're actually going to get the fastest possible results. Whereas if you do it super quickly, the way that I did in the beginning, then you're going to get super fast results in a way, but it's not going to be the results you want. And then you're going to go back to where you started and everything's going to go to shit. And it's going to turn out that you actually didn't get any progress that you wanted. Okay. So that's number 4, is stay away from the extremes. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And number 5 is getting help. Like I said, I got my first personal trainer when I became a personal trainer, and I wish I did it sooner. I wish I didn't wait that long. I did it with the intention of learning more so I could become a better coach and a better trainer. Basically, I started working at Gold's Gym. And then I was asking questions and they were like, dude, just get a personal trainer. We'll give you a good rate because you're working for us and everything. And basically that's when I got my first trainer. It turned out though that not only was it going to be beneficial for my coaching skills, but I had a ton of shit that was wrong with the way that I was doing things. So I learned a ton of stuff that actually helped me to progress in my fitness. And it didn't even stop there. Years into being a personal trainer, I got another trainer, and I've probably worked with 3 different coaches since I became a trainer. And one of them, I worked with him twice. And every time that I work with one, I learn more and more new things. And that's because it's very important to get that outside view, that bird's eye view of what it is you're doing, and sometimes take a step out and actually look at what it is that you're doing wrong and what you could do better. So, like, yes, you can definitely make some progress on your own. I'm not going to go against that, but it's going to take a lot longer. And the reason is it's hard to solve a problem with the same mind that created it. So whatever it is that you could be doing better, the reason that you're not doing better right now is because you don't have the mind for it. You have the mind that got you the results you have right now. If you want to get to the next level, it's either going to take tons of time and research and failure to learn from, or you can learn from someone else's failures and make the process a lot quicker. If I got a personal trainer at 18 years old, I would probably have the same physique that I have now by 20 years old or 22 years old, right? It would have gotten a lot quicker. Instead, I'm 27 now with this physique. So basically, I would have halved the time that it took me to get to this point if I just had trainers earlier on. So, this applies to anything. Even in my business, I have mentors, and I don't think ever since I started my online coaching business, I don't think I've ever gone a point without mentorship. I strongly believe in, if you really want to make changes, if you really want to grow, you got to have someone that's more knowledgeable than you to guide you. Otherwise, you're going to learn from your own failures. It's kind of like reinventing the wheel and then figuring out that, oh no, it turns out the wheel was the only way to do it, right? You don't want to do that. You don't want to waste your time doing a bunch of shit that someone else has done and figured out that it's wrong. And then, they can help you. And that's actually why I do things, is so that I can help spark more people to make changes and not have to go through all the failures that I went through to get to this point, so that, you guys can get some guidance and make the process a lot quicker. Anyways, that's it for me. That covers all of my points. Guys, I appreciate you for tuning in. I saw some of you guys from the beginning all the way to the end, so I absolutely appreciate that. I see Suave World just tuned in. What's up, bro? It's actually the end of my live, so go back to the beginning, bro. There was a ton of tips and value in this that's going to really help you with your physique if that's something you're trying to work on. So let me know if you guys have any questions. Going to wait a couple seconds here before ending it off. If there's none now, if there's some that pop up later, feel free to send me a message. And just going to do this. Cool. So I don't see any questions. Going to end it off there. Appreciate you guys for tuning in again, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.